There was a time that I thought that I knew everything, that I had all the answers, and when it came to my training, that I had it all figured out. But boy, was I wrong. Hey, what's up? I'm Ken. This is kenfuTV, and each week I release videos in the martial arts, philosophy, technique, training, that sort of thing. If that's what you're into, I hope you stick around. I hope you subscribe. I hope that if this has value for you, that you hit that like, and while you're down there, you leave a comment and join in on the conversation. Some of these videos can be longer than the average attention span, so I leave chapter markers in the description so you can jump to the part that you're interested in. Today, we're talking about, well, we're talking about perception, really. That's what we're really talking about. The perception of our expertise, the perception of our understanding, and where that fits in relation to everybody else's understanding. And just the truth itself, the thing, whatever it is, the factual thing that we think that we're good at. I've talked before in other videos about the stages of learning, or the stages of competence. And just a quick recap, those stages are unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and unconscious competence. Throughout our training, we run into different phases and different feelings about how good we are and what we know and what we feel confident in. For a lot of us at first, when we very first walk in, and I'm not talking when you're walking into a new place of training or a new situation. I'm talking about the first time, the very first time. You walk in and you might feel uncertain. You feel like you don't know anything. And because of that, everything is new and scary and you're not quite sure where to go. So you just start training. You start getting taught whatever it is that you're about to learn. But later, when you stick into it for a while, there possibly hits a point, I know it does for a lot of people, it hits this point where you feel like you have the answers, that you've been training long enough, you know enough, your skills are good enough, and your understanding of how all of this works is so great that you start to develop a bit of an ego. I know I did. I remember before I ever was really involved with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, when it was first becoming popular, I was thinking about my karate, and I'm looking at these takedowns, these double leg and single leg takedowns and stuff, and I'm thinking to myself about all the different ways that you can strike and hit somebody, and throw a knee or do something like that to just wreck somebody. I would just do this. Oh, how wrong we can be. Now I train Jiu-Jitsu, and I have for a number of years. I know without a doubt that the thoughts that I had, those thoughts and other thoughts, they weren't good thoughts. They weren't well thought out. They weren't well informed thoughts. They were just a picture of what I knew at the time and what I felt like could be true. I had similar thoughts with my karate, looking at Aikido and looking at other arts. Truly, I think that's one of the places that we do this the most, is when we start knowing what we know and then we start comparing it to other things. And then we use what we know to determine that our stuff is better. Definitely what I do is better than what you do. Definitely what I do is better than what I'm seeing there and what I'm seeing here and this or that. Because we feel confident, and we should feel confident. If we don't feel confident in what we know, then it's likely to fail us. But that doesn't mean that we should be in a position where we believe that we have all the answers and we have it all figured out and there's nothing that can defeat what we know. Over time, you start to understand more. You start to become aware of more. And by doing so, you start to realize how wrong you were. You start to realize how much more there is to know, just how much bigger it all is, and just how much you don't know. You start to get a picture of the scope of your knowledge in relation to the scope of all knowledge. And that can be a very eye-opening thing. So that brings in the concept that I want to talk about today. This phenomenon is not undocumented. In fact, there's kind of a funny story that goes along with it. I'll jump to in a minute. But what we're talking about here, we're talking about the Dunning-Kruger effect. The Dunning-Kruger effect is named after David Dunning and Justin Kruger. They're the people who developed this idea. They observed this and put thought to it, and it's a concept of cognitive bias. So in short, what it is the less you know about something, the more of an expert you'll believe that you are. It also comes along with some diagrams. There's been different diagrams over the years. This is one that is pretty popular that you may have seen. Now what the diagram is attempting to show, and there's different data that's been collected on this, is that at some point, your confidence and your knowledge is zero. You have zero confidence in zero knowledge. From there, you start to learn something, and as your knowledge increases a little bit, your confidence in that thing increases a lot. As your knowledge continues to increase, your confidence starts to drop again, starts to drop significantly. Not as sharply, according to the diagram, not as sharply as it rose up, but then it comes down. It doesn't stay there though, it dips way down and then it continues to rise again, and ultimately rising higher than that first high point. And that's at that maximum knowledge level, where you've started to actually possess a decent amount of knowledge, and you're confident because you actually have that knowledge, not just because you think you do. Later on, the diagram got additional labels, and I really kind of like them. They're kind of comical, but they're fairly accurate as well. With these ideas, you get this, that first tip of that is the peak of Mount Stupid, where all of that confidence is attached to nothing, basically. Then, as you start to know more and realize what you don't know, you drop into the Valley of Despair. Then you pull out into the Slope of Enlightenment as you continue to climb out of this valley. And then hopefully, at some point, you hit the Plataeu of Sustainability, where now you've hit the ability to sustain both your knowledge and your confidence together, that they've met. As you look at that chart doing this, that it rose up, it dropped down, and then it came up. And if you looked at it diagonally, now you're hitting that point where, okay, these are fairly equal to each other. That's the idea, anyway. Now, the concept is interesting because the concept basically relies on two separate factors. These factors are what Dunning and Kruger call miscalibration. It's this cognitive bias that we're talking about. So in the incompetent, the miscalibration stems from a lack of understanding of yourself. You don't know what you don't know, period, right? Going back to those 4 stages of competence, that's that first stage, really, that unconscious incompetence. I don't know that I don't know. And then the second section of the Dunning-Kruger effect is how it affects the highly competent, the people who are competent. And for them, the misconception is not in of themselves, but in others. So you have the incompetent, unaware of how much they are truly not competent. And then you have the highly competent who are confused and unaware of the competence of others. Said a different way, the incompetent need to come to understand themselves. The competent need to become aware of other people. Now, relating this to our martial journey, if you've been in the dojo for a long time, and especially if you run a school and have for some time, then you will have seen these times where people come in and I'm just now putting this together for myself, this idea that I've always known about plateaus in training. I'm going to use karate. I train Jiujitsu and Eskrima and different things, and they all have their own ranking systems. But karate is the one that I've had the most experience with, the longest duration of time to see all of these things. And in karate, I was always told about, and then later witnessed in myself, and then witnessed in others, these ideas of plateaus. And they happen for different people, where you're training, you're moving up, and then you hit these spots that just level out, and then they move up and level out and move up. And so at different ranks, your motivation, your inspiration wanes. In conjunction with that, there's also this concept of people dropping off, right? Start in as white belt, and a lot of people make it to yellow belt, and less people make it. Pause. In the system that I did, this is not the same in every system. In the system that I did, before it was mine and before I got rid of all the colors, it was white, yellow, blue, green, brown, black. Those were the colors. Not every system is the same, but if I'm going to talk about colors, then I need to give you a frame of reference. This is a thing that a lot of people don't think about, or perhaps know enough to think about, that this is relative, that A, the black belt itself is relative to the school and the instructor with which you train, and B, that a blue belt in one system is not the equivalent of a blue belt in another system. I was just reading a book by someone, and their blue belt was much higher than ours was. Ours is considered you haven't even made it through the first half of your training. Theirs was right towards the end. What you can expect of a person based on the color of their belt is drastically different if you don't understand a reference of the order of them. So, white, yellow, blue, green, brown, black. That's the orders that we had. So, white belts, they get started, they enjoy themselves. Yellow belts continue. People start to drop off around blue belt. People really drop off around green belt. People really, really drop off around brown belt. And very few people make it to the black belt. That's not the end. If you haven't done this, then you might not realize that there are degrees of black that continue on after that. So that's not the end of it. But that same concept of people dropping off continues to happen at an even higher rate after black belt. The number of people who make it to second degree or third degree or fourth degree just becomes less and less, a smaller percentage. But now we look at this idea and we overlap the concept of Dunning-Kruger. This idea that we ramp up, we come in, we start feeling good, our confidence starts to go, it starts to grow, it starts to just excel. We hit a really great spot. We feel like we know everything. We feel like we have all the answers. Maybe things happen in our lives and we feel like maybe I don't need to go anymore. So this other thing that's interesting to me, maybe I go do that. I don't stick around. Then you got the people that start to tip over the other side and they start to see, oh, there's a lot more. How am I ever going to learn all this stuff? And maybe they peter out. Then you get the people that get into, and I like that term, this valley of despair. The people who have now become, they've trained long enough and they've developed enough knowledge to realize that there is an enormous amount left. They see the scope of it and they go, oh my God, I'll never learn all this. I don't know how I'm ever going to do all this. And their confidence just shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. How can I ever fathom? And I'm not just talking about knowledge in the curriculum, whatever's in your curriculum that you have to know. I'm talking about the concepts and ideas of the martial arts and all that they entail. And this doesn't apply to just the martial arts. That's what I do here. I talk about martial arts. This applies to anything that you can develop knowledge in. So there's this concept of you start to become aware of what is possible. And then you start to question that you have the ability to do it. To be able to even fathom all these options, all these things. That's where that valley of despair comes in. It goes, I'm never going to get this. And you struggle. Right? Then you continue on that chart and you see this growth. I truly believe that where that drops in different arts and different ranks for different people could be all over. I truly believe that that's kind of that brown into black, at least in our school, that's the way it was. For a lot of people, I believe that would be actually after black. There's a number of schools where black is difficult, but maybe not very impossible. And I'm not saying that our black belt is impossible, but it's very character-based. In some ways, we've incorporated, without knowing, I didn't know this, I'm just drawing these connections, we've incorporated the concept of Dunning-Kruger into this idea. So as you progress and as you rank, you're understanding that you're not done, that there's a lot more, that there's so much more to understand. That's part of achieving the black belt in our system, in our school. It's an internal thing. It's not just a list of curriculum. So where, depending on how your school works and the way the systems work, where you fit into that may change. I believe in our system that the slope of enlightenment, the climbing out and starting to become aware again, happens in more of the brown belt, and we had 3. That was third Q, second Q, and first Q. The last 3 Qs before the dawn rankings is the slope. That's when you're starting to become aware of it, but you're also starting to become comfortable with it. You're starting to appreciate it and develop an understanding of it, and it's starting to become part of your training, just this understanding that there's more, and there's a humbleness and a humility that comes along with that. And then that should, at least with us, it's probably going to overlap black belt, so brown into black, and then later levels of black is where that plateau of sustainability comes in. Maybe it does. Just depends on if it fits with the individual, with the person, and how they see and all of that. Understanding this helps to understand the progress of rank within people, the progress of knowledge consumption and understanding of the material and understanding of the craft. I truly believe falls in line with this. It also means that you've got to train in some patience and some humility of your own to deal with the people who are going through that peak of Mount Stupid, where the student has gotten to a place where they feel like they know everything, so they're telling you stuff that they have no right to tell you because they truly have no idea. And you've got to have patience for that because you went through it. You did that to somebody else. And now it's somebody else's turn for you to get to see what it looked like when you went through it, through somebody else's eyes, through your own eyes watching somebody else do it. But now you also have this understanding that it gets better, that your confidence can come back, that there is more to it, but it's also possible. Our ability to believe things is incredible and sometimes comical. 2 stories. The first is the one that kind of prompted Dunning-Kruger to come to these ideas, which was in 1995. There was a man who robbed 2 banks, and he did so with lemon juice all over his face. He did so believing that made him invisible to the security cameras. so they wouldn't know what he looked like. This theory, this hypothesis, came from the idea that lemon juice on paper is invisible ink. And so it has the ability to make things invisible. So he had a concept, a baseline understanding of how lemon juice could make invisible ink. He hypothesized that would also make him invisible to security cameras. He believed in it so strongly that he did not feel it was necessary to test or verify these claims. And then through that belief, and through an extreme level of confidence, he, hopped in the car, went to the bank, and he robbed 2 banks, believing that everything was going to be fine because of this. He believed so strongly. He was so confident that he did something really dumb. And we can look at that and we can laugh, but he couldn't because he was unaware. His belief and his confidence and the level of knowledge, his expertise level told him that this would work. Obviously, the interesting thing about that is the fact that a strong belief and a strong confidence that's not backed by anything can still put us in a place of being capable of doing more than we probably should be able to. Now I can tell you a bad story, a story of my own, kind of leans into that idea of the power of the mind. It's a bad story because it was dumb, and I was young, and this was an immature thing that I look back on, and I'm not proud of it. Young guy, working my first job, corporate America, working for Office Max, sales rep, tech guy, all this stuff, and I just didn't want to be there. I just didn't want to do it. And instead of having a good work ethic and just being like, buck up and get it done, I went, I feel like I probably just want to go home. Maybe I can go home sick today. I'll try again tomorrow. Well, so I started thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I just don't feel good. I'm like, I'll just kind of get my head in the right place before I go talk to my manager. And I'm like, man, I just don't feel good today. Man, God, I just feel awful. Man, I don't feel good today. I actually got sent home. Through continuing to barrage my mind with how bad I felt, I started to feel bad. I became pale, I lost color, I became tired and lethargic. And my manager saw it and was like, are you okay? Maybe you need to go home. And I'm like, part of me's going, yes, it worked. I can go home now. The other part of me spent the rest of the afternoon feeling like garbage because I had spent so much time in my head convincing myself that I felt sick, Absolute waste. Looking back on it, I was able to look at just how truly dumb and immature that was. It was not necessary. It did not provide for me in any way. But I also gained a little bit of knowledge of knowing that what your brain can do to you is incredible. It was Henry Ford that said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. That's such a powerful statement, this idea. If I believe that I can do it, I can do it. If I believe that I can't do it, I can't do it. I can't be capable of doing it and believe that I can't do it at the same time. And the opposite is also true. So it's really important that you believe in yourself. It's really important that the things that you say to yourself are positive and self-improving, because at the end of the day, that person that you're stuck with in your head 24/7 gets a lot more mic time than anybody else. So if you got a couple people in your life who are telling you something positive that makes you feel good, and you got somebody in your head who's spending the other 23 hours and 45 minutes telling you that you're garbage and worthless and unable to do this stuff, who are you going to believe? The ratio's not right. There's this little bit that was okay and a lot that wasn't okay. I got a little bit off track there, but it's important that we kind of bring into this concept of how the Dunning-Kruger effect works. We believe so strongly that we're not challenged. We believe that we're the experts, that we have the answers. We feel like we are more capable in that field than we actually are. Similarly, on the other side, finishing the idea of how all this lays out. They kind of broke into 4 segments. And in the studies that I read, they didn't really talk about that first segment. They talked about the second segment. The second segment is this peak of Mount Stupid, where you have a little bit of knowledge, but you believe that you are more capable or more able than you are. Now, it's important to note, and this is confused a lot, those people in the studies that they did not believe that they were more capable than the people who were highly capable. They just believed that they were more capable than they were. That's that misconception of themselves. They didn't have a connection to how capable they were. And part of the way they tested this is they had people do the test on whatever knowledge or whatever thing that they were testing on, but then rate themselves as how good they did before they got their results. They were able to put those two things together. What did you think you knew? how good do you think you are versus how good you actually are. And they did this on all walks, everybody from the incompetent all the way to the competent. There's that third section, the Valley of Despair section. And these are just slots of time, right? So then you got people who have spent a lot more time and are a lot more capable, who are in this fourth, I think they call it the Quatrile. The fourth Quatrile, or Quatrile? I don't know. I'm not sure how that word's pronounced. Later, I'm gonna have to look that up. If you know how it's pronounced, drop that in the comments. We're gonna go with Quatrile. The fourth Quatrile. People in the fourth Quatrile. People of high competence. When they did their ranking of themselves, when they rated themselves lower than they actually were capable of. And this is interesting because it was based on the fact that when they look at their peers, they, in their minds, their misconception of the people around them made them feel like the people around them knew more than they actually did. Put another way, you could say they were very humble, that they believed the people around them were more capable. So they, in a sense, they didn't know that they knew as much as they knew. They didn't know that they were as capable as they are. They gave a lot more people the benefit of the doubt than was deserved. So you have this third Quatrile, the third Quatrile being between those two, between the peak of Mount Stupid and the Plataeu of Sustainability, this Valley of Despair, where more knowledge is gained. The people in the second Quatrile, through a misconception of how good they are, how good they actually are, believed that they were smarter than the people in the third Quatrile. People in the fourth Quatrile knew that they were talented. They knew that they had the ability. They knew that they had the knowledge, and they were confident in that. They just also believed that the third Quatrile was higher than it actually is, so that they felt that there was more even footing, that they were still higher, but it was more even, when it was really more, they actually know a lot more. That starts to fall into the realm of the imposter syndrome, which is what we'll be talking about next week. These things go together, and it's really important that we talk about it, and it's really important that we understand it, and so that's where we're going. So the more we become aware, the more that we test and validate for ourselves what we do and don't know, the more accurate our perception of what we know and what our ability level is, the more accurate that perception is. And they tested that too. They tested taking the people who were in the second Quatrile and giving them more knowledge in the thing, training them for a day or two on the stuff they felt like they knew, which gave them a stronger perspective of how much they actually knew. And when they tested again, their ratings were a lot more accurate. And that's kind of a rapid result version of what that third Quatrile looks like, that Valley of Despair, when you start to actually be aware and your ranking starts looking very accurate. I feel like I know this much, and it's because I actually know this much. And I feel like that puts me in relation to other people here, because that's actually where I am, because I understand where they are. I don't know, I hope this was interesting to you. I didn't have a very specific place that I was going with this, more so that I just wanted to talk about it, give some understanding to it, and as I uncover how it applies to my training and seeing the school and the students and the people in it and how this all relates, I wanted to be able to give that to you as well, so that you had the ability to have that same thought process and maybe see how it connects for you, and maybe comment and give me ideas on what you've understood, what you've discovered, what you've uncovered about Dunning-Kruger, knowledge, perception, and truth. Real quick, we'll go read my favorite comment from last week's video, and then we'll wrap this up. This week I have two favorite comments. The first one is one from Blacksburg Agnostics, and I'm not going to read that one because part of it being my favorite is I actually have a different idea of how I want to approach this comment, so I'll be coming back to this one. So let's go to the one that is my favorite for this video. Akadafiri posed a poem called Maybe a Truth. If a truth is always certain, it may rot. If it hadn't been so, it maybe would have not. If a truth is rigid and stale, one probably knows that it might fail. I really like this because it just really encourages that idea of reassessment, reevaluation, and never taking something to always be what it always is, what it always has been. There's always room for things to change. So thank you for that. Really enjoyed it. The rest of the comments will be posted in a separate video. Be sure to look out for that. Last week was the first week that we did separate videos for comments from last week and the video itself. And I wasn't sure how that would go. And I can show you this week that the views were almost 1 for 1. We ended up at the time of this recording with 170 views on last week's video and 178 views on the comments video. Now, those might be unique. Those might not be views that went to both videos, but we'll kind of see how it goes over the next few weeks. But what that tells me is that maybe you guys do actually like this comment section. So I don't know, we'll keep that up. Be sure to watch for this week's video. Somebody suggested that maybe it doesn't have to come out on the same day, so take a little bit of the pressure off of me to get all of this done at once. And I might take you up on that. So if so, make sure you got those notifications turned on so that you know when that video comes out too. In the meantime, let's wrap this up. Okay, that's it. Dunning-Kruger, concepts and perceptions and reality. I hope this was interesting to you, and I hope that you drop in the comments thoughts and feelings that you have on how this relates. And I don't know if there's others. There's 1,000 other different cognitive biases and things like that. Which other ones do you think that we should talk about? Other ones that I want to talk about maybe are things like Hanlon's razor and the curse of knowledge. But if you have others that you think we should cover, that you think I should be looking at, drop them down there and we'll do that. If you like this video, if you like the things we're doing, you can subscribe right here. You can catch a playlist of videos like this right here. When it's out, there'll be a video of the rest of the comments from last week here and another video that you might like here. I'm Ken. This is kenfuTV, and I'll catch you in the next one.